Hello and welcome to our boat race fixture coverage this afternoon. My name is Martin Cross, former Olympic champion in rowing, and I'm joined by Jess Eddy, Olympic silver medalist from the Rio Games. Jess, it's going to be a great afternoon of racing.
Yeah, thanks Martin. We're really looking forward to it. It's the last set of fixtures before the actual boat race in 2 weeks' time, March 26th, right here on the Thames. So we're going to see really the last test before Oxford and Cambridge face each other. And today we've got some other crews coming to race against them.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the crews coming up, because the actual boat race kind of looks quite close, particularly the men's. But this afternoon, the Oxford Brookes crew, the women's crew that are racing Oxford University Women's Boat Club, and the Leander crew that are racing Oxford men are really, really strong crew. And if you had to say who's favourites, you'd say, well, the Oxford crews don't have a chance. So in one way, it's kind of thinking, what is the point of these guys racing?
Well, they want to come here and race against the very best crews, I think, and that's the whole point of these fixtures. They're really here to test themselves, find out their weaknesses. It would be easy for them to row over this course and just absolutely dominate any other crew. But this is the chance to really push their buttons, see where they can improve in these coming weeks. And to do that, they want to race the best of the best, and that's what they've got today.
Andy Nelder, the Oxford women's coach, has put his crew up against Oxford Brookes. Now, you were watching the women's heads just a few days ago, and that Oxford Brookes crew finished in third place. Phenomenal result for the university.
Yeah, so we're talking about here this Oxford Brookes University, the women's boat, and they actually are one of our fastest women's boats in the country, regardless of level. They came in third, our women's eight, said just less than a week ago here, right here on the Thames, and they're really putting themselves up as one of the fastest crews in the world, really, in their category. So Oxford are really going to have themselves a tough race to get today against this Brookes crew.
Yeah, and I guess if they can hang on to the Brookes crew, I think when Brookes raced Cambridge, the second piece, Brookes beat Cambridge by 5 lengths. So if Oxford are closer than that, they're probably going to take some heart. So it really is about Oxford focusing, staying in their bubble. Andy Nelder's put them up against lots of different crews. They've raced some great crews from Thames and Leander and so on and so forth. So this is a really important fixture. What about the men up against Leander?
Yeah, so the Oxford men have also got a tough job here against Leander. Probably one of the biggest, best clubs in the country, based here in England, just up the Thames quite a bit more in Henley. The Pink Palace, they're called, and they dominate club rowing here. So again, one of the very best crews in the country to race Oxford men.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting, the battle between the Coxes. We've got Jack Totham in the Leander crew, of course, was the victorious dark blue Cox last year, and he's up against Anna O'Hanlon, who coach Sean Bowden has picked for the Oxford crew, and that's going to be a key clash, isn't it?
Yeah, you always think if you're going to be here and you're the boat race crew, you've got a slight advantage because you're training here, your whole focus is to be on the tidal Thames. The river's different in different places, the flows and the ebbs. So to actually be up against Jack, last year's blue boat, it's going to be really hard.
And just one word, there's been some interest, let's call it like that, of Felix Drinkle, who's been rowing at Leander all season, I think, trying to make the British squad. And kind of in the last few weeks or so, Sean Bowden has put Felix Drinkle in the Oxford boat. Little bit of a controversial pick, or do you think that's fine?
Yeah, look, I think so. I think you're always going to, push to the edge of the rules, and I think he's allowed to put him in there, so he has. The boat race have got rules to make this as fair as possible. It's a university boat race fixture, and that's what they're trying to make it. If you've got a really good guy sitting there doing a PhD at your university, didn't make the British team, you'd put him in 10 times out of 10, I think, Martin.
Yeah, I think you probably would. And just a word on conditions. The stream is flowing out. Well, actually, it looks just like it's changing at the moment. Fairly sort of benign.
Yeah, it's been pretty windy, pretty miserable week here in London, but today a bit warmer, a bit calmer. The flags are slightly blustery, so I imagine this first piece up here at the start might be okay. You might get a few more waves around the corner, but nothing too dramatic.
So our first race is coming up at 14:20. Really looking forward to it, and we'll take you through all the action this afternoon. But for the moment, it's bye from me and Jess. So, hello, it's me, Martin Cross, with Jess Eddy. We're back in the studio to take you through this afternoon's races. You just saw there our sponsors for the boat race. Really important because they're the people bringing you this series. Weather today, you can see it's fairly nice and benign, not so sunny now. But Gemini, of course, our title sponsor, Graduate Hotels. More than just a place to stay, they're here for the moments that matter. Get a lovely hotel stay in Oxford or Cambridge. Hydro, our official fitness partner, led by world-class athletes, live and on-demand workouts that you can see on the screen. And of course T. Rowe Price, our official investment partner, new to the boat race, but great to see them on board. So Jess, we are waiting for this first race. You can see at 14:20 the Oxford women go up against Oxford Brookes. I guess they're down or downstream of us now, to the right of that picture, warming up.
Yeah, that's right. They'll be practicing for the very last time before the boat races, which are going to happen in 26th of March, 2 weeks today. Very excited for that. But they'll be doing their last kind of rehearsals, and they warm up beyond those Putney bridges there. You can see on your screen, you can see Putney Bridge in front of you, and behind that you might just see the buttress of Putney Rail Bridge, which the London Underground runs over, and they'll just be beyond that doing their final bursts and prep.
It's interesting, the station choice. This side that we're on is the Surrey station, and the far side next to Fulham Football Club, and there's a match this afternoon. We've seen the crowds walking through Vicious Park. But the Oxford women chose Surrey, giving the advantage off the start to Oxford Brookes University. And I guess Oxford women must hope that they can hang on to Brookes off the start and maybe get some advantage from that Surrey bend on the first piece.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. If you're joining us, you'll see on our screen shortly that actually it starts off with the boat race with a bend round to the right. The funny thing about that is it's a bit deceptive, because the right hand side, which we call over there on the Middlesex side, is quite shallow, so it's a bit slower. So you actually almost want to, you generally want to pick the Surrey side to be, it looks like you're taking the wider part of the river, but it's actually the fastest bit of stream. And there's been a bit of change with the point cost today, of different clubs choosing different sides, so a few tactics I think maybe at play, but yeah, we'll see how it plays out shortly.
So there we have the two teams going from bow to stroke. The American twice doctorate she's going to be, Laurel Kay. I was talking to her the other day, amazing lady. Claire Aitken in the 2 seats from Oriel College, studying cardiovascular science. Sarah Hillin, the president, in the 3 seat. Freya Willis, the Aussie, in the 4 seat. Alison Carrington in the 5 seat, race for Osiris last year. Not too many blues in this boat. Ella Stadler holding down the 6 seat, the joint British-American from Exeter College. And Sarah Marshall, not that much experience in the 7 seat, but she's learning all the time, and she's really held that seat down well. Esther Austin, the Kiwi, in the stroke seat, former world junior oarswoman. And Tara Slade, the medic, and Harry Potter geek as well, in the Cox of the Oxford University women's crew. And then Oxford Brookes A. Well, do you want to take them through this, or shall I go through?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking here at one of the very best women's crews in the country, so they're pretty spectacular. They're just coming up with an incredible week last week, 3rd at the 8th head of the river. And we're not just talking about 3rd in university standards. The winners were British national team, 2nd were very strong Leander crew, then Oxford Brookes were 3rd right up there. They actually beat the GB sculling crew that was put together by a lot of our very good scullers, so a pretty punchy crew there. Martha Bertels in the bow seat, Orion Smelding, the Dutch rower, in the 2 seat. Ariana Ford in 3. Jenny Bates at 5. Rihanna Sumpter at 6. Grace Richards at 7. Up there, Claire Ferrick and Brianna Randall, coxed by Sophia Bernal.
And it looks like the race has started early, and we've got Oxford Brookes on the right of your picture, so sorry we haven't brought you the start, but the Brookes 8 are leading the Oxford University Women's Boat Club on this near side, the Surrey station, and they're probably, what do you reckon, about 20 strokes into this race, Jess?
Yeah, they've literally just gone off the blocks about a minute early, so we didn't catch the start there, but pretty neck and neck there as they're coming past us. We can see out here outside of London Rowing Club, and a strong start from Brookes, I'd say, by about a ball right here.
Yeah, so Brooks leading by around about a third of a length. They're coming past our commentary position. We're at London Rowing Club, if you know the Tideway, and Brooks have got the lead. They've got the advantage on that right-hand station, the Middlesex station. And Oxford, really important for them to hang on in. And just looking at Esther Austin there, the Kiwi stroke, she's really digging in, isn't she? Leading her crew. And Sarah Marshall, well, she's picking up the front end okay. Maybe a little bit deep, the 7-woman for the Oxford Women's Boat Race, but they haven't been disgraced so far.
No, Martin, and I think lining up here today, they knew they'd have a big task ahead of them against this Brooks crew, and Brooks have really taken it out now to about half length down the boats. They're only about 400 metres in now, and are we going to see a clash here?
Yeah, and that's the Oxford Women's Cox that we saw at the start of the programme. Tara Slade steering very close to the Middlesex station, and the Oxford Brooks Cox, Sophia Burnell, the American from University of Iowa, steered this crew, I think, in the head. I think there's still a competition, Richard Spratley was telling me, for who's going to cox the Oxford Brooks First Eight, and it's between Sophia Burnell and another of the Oxford Brooks coaches. Oxford being warned, I think, by Matt Smith there.
Yeah, you've got to hold on. You've got to hold on to your blade in those situations. You've got to give a little jab and make sure you're the one putting your blade in the water and not getting disrupted. The coxers are going to do their thing, and you've got to keep doing yours. I think it's about keeping a clear head and making sure you're not going to catch a crab from any of those clashes. But some tight coxing there by both crews.
I just saw Sophia Burnell put the rudder on there to give that little bit of advantage on the inside. There we see Esther Austin in the stroke seat. She's the nearest right on the left of the screen. Sarah Marshall behind her with the cap on, hair streaming behind. They look they look cohesive. Just what's Andy Nelder looking for? I mean, it's no surprise that Oxford Brooks are going to be leading. I guess how this race unfolds in the next minute or two is going to be crucial.
I think this is just a bit of character building, and you know you're going against a very fast crew. It's now exactly that, Martin. How do you respond? You've got to keep laying it down. You've got to keep putting the watts down. They're here practicing for 2 weeks' time, and they've got to put themselves in their own shoes in a few weeks and still getting the most out of themselves. What can you learn from this situation?
Absolutely, this Oxford Brooks crew. We have said, of course, they finished third in the women's head. And quite striking, the Oxford Brooks second crew, some of whom will go up against the Osiris crew. Wow, look at that boat there. Brenna Randall, the Canadian from University of Tennessee, also rode in the British trials recently, came 16th. Claire Ferrick, the Irish woman with the red cap on, in the 7 seat. Grace Richards, the powerhouse, in the 6. She did that pair with Rihanna Sumter rowing behind her in the trials. Fastest under 23 pair finished 13th. Jenny Bates in the 4 seat, she finished 6th overall in the GB trials in the single in November. I mean, just how much talent has this Oxford Brooks boat got?
They're absolutely jam-packed full of pedigree, and actually they're very race sharp. So this is great practice for the Oxford crew behind, but it's a hard place to be, sitting a length and a half down. They'll start feeling a bit of wash there, I'd have thought, Martin.
Yeah, I wonder how Sophia Burnell is going to be, if she's going to move over. She's quite entitled to move over and take the water on the Surrey station. So that choice of Surrey that the Oxford crew made, and they're the crew we're looking at now at the back of your picture, probably about 2 lengths length of clear water behind the Oxford Brooks crew. That choice of Surrey not looking to be the wisest, because Oxford Brooks did get away at the start and did establish that clear water margin.
Yeah, and we see it here in the boat race, especially because there's a rule that if you've got clear water, you can move ahead. It's really about the position on this tidal bit of water that's forever moving. So you want the quickest bit of water. The Brooks Cox here, she's being very lenient. Sophia Burnell, she could move over if she wants to, but she's being pretty disciplined, staying on her station.
So here we see the Oxford Women's Blue Boat. Just 2 weeks before the boat race, they have put themselves up against the top university in Britain, possibly one of the top women's universities in the world. They have gone toe-to-toe with them, credit to that. But it's no surprise that Oxford Brooks, as we come round this bend, that's our camera, I guess that's from Hammersmith Bridge, Jess.
Yeah, you've got the Harrods Wall on your right-hand side there. A few crews, I think, from Fulham Reach bobbing along, but the boat race fixtures coming down towards Harrods, so they're a couple of kilometres in almost, and they've got to keep their heads, got to keep their hand in the fire here.
Saw Laurel Kay, the experienced one in the crew, rowing at bow. The former lightweight rower made her way in this open weight category. Esther Austin, the Kiwi, at stroke, still plugging on with that rhythm. I guess, the middle of this race has not been too bad for the Oxford women. Brooks have moved, but they haven't sort of disgraced the Oxford University women's crew. We've got probably about another 3 minutes of this race. We're going to go under Hammersmith Bridge, you can see there in the background, and round that Surrey bend to Chiswick Ayot, which is around about the crossing where the crews actually have to cross over the river. So it's about 3 minutes of racing to go. 5 lengths was the margin on the second piece between Oxford Brooks and Cambridge, and that will be what Andy Nelder and the Oxford women's crew will look at.
Yeah, you can compare slightly to other crews, because over the past 2 or 3 months there have been different fixtures for both Oxford and Cambridge against some of the very best clubs in the country. But this close to the race, I think you're kind of seeing the final boat. The announcement was actually this week at the Apothecaries Hall, so the blue boat has been set now, and their seats are fairly certain for the 2 weeks time race. So this is the closest you'll see the final product.
Just great to look at this boat, so controlled, so smooth on the run out forward, and so powerful. I was talking to Richard Spratley about this 8 and said, why couldn't we have the names earlier? He said basically you don't see Man United give you the team sheet, 6 days before the match. They name the they want to keep their oarswomen sharp, so that's why they only named this crew this morning.
Look, Oxford Brooks, I've rowed with many an Oxford Brooks rower in my time. They're renowned for this aggressive, hard rowing. They do a really hard programme down there over in Wallingford on the Thames, and you produce these athletes, and there's probably a lot more athletes that could make that top boat, but it's probably very competitive to get into. You're looking here at the absolute pedigree of university rowing, not only in the country but in the world. They won the Ireland, the Women's University 8 race at Henley Royal in 2021. They lost to Brown last year in the Saturdays in the semi-final, so they're probably on this trajectory to get themselves up there and get another Henley win, I imagine, this year, Martin, and they're probably very hungry for it as well, and they're producing an absolute masterclass.
They are hungry for it, and I think they're off to San Diego for the San Diego Crew Classic. I think both men's and women's crews are off for that, which will be a great shout. And there's the Oxford Cox, Tara Slade taking a wide line around this bend. They're about, probably, what do you reckon that is, 3 lengths of clear water down, maybe 4 lengths in total down on the Oxford Brooks crew. That might stretch out to 5 lengths. I guess it's important they keep to 5 lengths.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard when you're behind and you're being told, look, you've got another piece after this, because with these pieces today you're going to split the boat race up into 2 halves, and they have just got to put themselves in the race situation. This is all good training, it's all good practice. They, at the moment, are getting beaten by Oxford Brooks, but there's nothing to say that Cambridge won't be right next to them at this stage in 2 weeks' time. So it's important for them to keep practicing what they set out to do. What are they there to do today? They knew they were racing against a very strong Oxford Brooks crew. What was their race plan today? Stick to it.
Yeah, and this is really where they need the expression in sport is to be within your bubble, isn't it? And you have to really stay focused on your rowing. They would have known that Oxford Brooks were going to beat them. The question is by how much, and therefore you've got to be into your process. And these Oxford women now trailing at the back. We're sorry if you've just lost pictures from our launch following camera, but these Oxford women at the back are really going to be focused in on their own rowing, and that's the way they're going to measure. Did they row well? Did they dig in? Did they keep thinking about their own processes as opposed to the opposition and the distance the opposition was in front of them?
Yeah, and that's very hard to do. This is where we talk about rowing being not just a physical sport, but it's an absolutely mental sport as well. You have to be able to find out where the edge is and keep pushing. And I think I love the analogy of the hand in the fire. I think I've said it once already, that feeling like you're on fire but just stay there. And pretty much that's what the boat race is about, that one-on-one fight to stay in the fire. And can you hold your head, and can you be more consistent when the other crew might not be able to? All it might take sometimes is 1 or 2 strokes of weakness and you get your bows ahead.
So the pictures we're seeing now, I don't know if you're seeing the same on the YouTube picture, are just before the crews turn round that left-hand bend, Surrey bend, to go to Chiswick Ayot. and the race will unwind. It looks like it's going to be something like a 5-length margin, I think, from our point of view, and we're sorry if you have lost pictures at the moment, but we're doing our best to bring you the commentary. Races here this afternoon. We have got the Cambridge women on the water. They're up against another fantastic outfit from Leander, and shortly coming up we will show you some pictures, I think certainly off the start, of the Osiris boat. That's the Oxford Women's Reserve boat up against the Oxford Brookes second boat. Well, it's not actually their second boat, it's kind of a mixture, I think, between their second and their third boats. So those are the races we've got in the first half of the afternoon, and then in the second half of the afternoon we have got the Oxford men going up against the might of Leander. The Oxford men, the Isis crew, going off first against Leander's second 8, and then we've got the first Oxford boat, the blue boat, up against Leander's first crew, and it's going to be really interesting because Leander have of course raced Cambridge, and we're going to really see the difference between the two crews, which looks to be so close this year.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really interesting. We talked earlier about the fact that there's no massive internationals here. A lot of the time, the boat races, Oxford and Cambridge, they really do attract some of the big hitters. Last year we saw Grace Prendergast come and race in the Cambridge University with Ruby Chu, both of them from the New Zealand Olympic team. We saw some of the Swiss guys come across and raced in the Oxford boat. We saw Tom George, Oliver Griffith come race in the Cambridge boat. We don't have those people this year. This year is almost purely, a lot of them have almost what we call kind of a walk-on. A lot of them have started university and they've taken up rowing there. Some of the men's boats slightly different. A few of them have rowed at school and as juniors, but across the board at this time of year we're seeing a lot more kind of pure university rowers.
So just to kind of let you know what's happened, we are missing pictures on our TV commentary screen, which is a shame, but we are now looking at pictures on YouTube, as you guys are. There's a slight delay in the commentary, but in the distance is the Oxford Brookes women's crew, and they are powering away as they have done. Look at those blades really coming down close to the front end. I'm sorry that we have lost pictures on that on our TV camera, but we're back now with you on YouTube as we come to the crossing, which is where the boats cross from the Surrey side of the river over to Middlesex as they make their way upstream, and that will be the end of this race, Jess.
Yeah, and a bit bobbly around there, we'd say. A little bit more water, bit of wind against tide, which causes that kind of wave on the water. And you can see the Oxford Brookes crew there. We looked at very closely a second ago. They've got tape along their riggers just to minimise any excess water that comes into the boat. You don't want big waves and excess water to be filling up and making your boat heavier as you're rowing.
I think there was word that there were going to be strong southwesterly winds today, and maybe the coaches thought that was the best thing to do, to put the splash balls on the side of the boat. They're going round a long way, aren't they?
Yeah, they're coming right round the bandstand now. I'm not sure if our pictures might have stopped and have started again, but we're coming back round to the crossing point, the second crossing point, almost into the last 2 kilometres of the race.
Well, Oxford Brookes have stopped rowing there. That was a long piece. Normally you would go to Chiswick Steps or whatever. This is such a long piece. I guess that's what Andy Nelder asked for. The Cambridge women did the Tideway Head and finished 9th behind Oxford Brookes' second crew, finished 8th last week. So they had a long race piece. This is Oxford women's long race piece, isn't it?
Yeah, so with the pieces, if you watch the fixtures previously, they'd normally go up to around Chiswick 8, and right now they've probably gone another 800 metres through that line. So if they're going to spin here, they'll either have a very short second piece, or they might row up and do a little bit longer, but that's changed as they're on the water from what we knew when they boated. But yeah, you can see that was a painful race. The Oxford rowers are hanging over their oars. Probably have a quick debrief here, Martin.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Andy Nelder can go and say, look, what are we going to take from that? Congratulations from 7 woman Sarah Marshall there to her stroke Esther Austin. Esther Austin congratulating Tara Slade. It's really important they keep a positive frame of mind, isn't it?
They're not racing Oxford Brookes at the boat race, they're racing Cambridge, and that's what they've got to remember. And that's what they're going to have to focus on in this second piece and for the next 2 weeks. It's not always a bad thing to take a bit of a beating to find out where your weak points are. I thought they looked a little bit scrappy off the start. I think if you compared the Oxford crew to this Brookes crew, Brookes looked a little bit more well drilled. Their oars, their spoons were all coming down to the water together. There was a little bit of, it wasn't quite so coherent in that Oxford crew, and I think they could probably practice that. As we see here, a bit of replay off that start line.
Yeah, this is what we didn't see, the start of the race. It's great that we can take you back and look at the start, and there's both crews. Nice easy start, easy squeeze from the Oxford crew on the left hand side. Some of the highlights of that race. Someone watching who's not a rower, Andy Lawrence, has texted and said, how come the Brookes crew are so much better than Oxford? And I guess I'd say recruitment is that they basically recruit rowers more effectively, and not like last year when the Olympians came to Oxford men and Oxford and Cambridge women. Basically, is it easiest to get into Oxford Brookes, therefore they can get better rowers? Is that why?
I'd say boat clubs go in kind of roller coasters, don't they? And you sometimes have better clubs from different places around the country. At the moment, we're seeing a real golden era in the past kind of 5, 6, 7 years at Oxford Brookes. I mean, they've always produced very good Olympians, very good athletes, but at the moment, across the board, they're consistently winning Henley medals. They're consistently placing, either winning the men's head of the river or placing very high up in the women's eights head of the river. They're consistently there at the very top. And that attracts the best athletes. You want to go and row at the best clubs with the best people, which, you know, success breeds success. So they've got a lot of people going there, and a lot of internationals. We saw Canadian and Irish, Dutch people in that crew. They're attracted from around the world to come and study, an opportunity to study and race at the highest level.
Yeah, and these women from Oxford Brookes, you know, some of them are doing masters. For example, Brenna Randall, the stroke woman, the Canadian, studied at University of Tennessee and is now doing a masters from the Oxford Brookes crew. And, you know, they look for academic rigour, but I guess it is tougher to get into Oxford women. And Andy Nelder is trying to build a programme, he's trying to attract talent. Cambridge this year have probably got the edge. In fact, when I talked to Andy Nelder, you know, I sort of said, well, it seems to be a bit close. And he said, no, I'm having none of it. He said, they're the favourites. Cambridge are the favourites. He's putting himself in the position of the underdog. And, you know, I know he'd like to recruit more effectively, but, you know, clearly you're looking at an Oxford Brookes programme that's got a fantastic recruitment edge, both in men and women.
Yeah, and yeah, let's not make no bones about it. It's very hard to get to Oxford and Cambridge, two of the very best universities in the world. You cannot walk in there and say I'm a good rower. You have to be academically top of your field to get a place there. And we've got people doing MPhils, we've got people doing PhDs. They're the top of the top in their academic field. So you've got to be able to tick that box as well as being a very good rower. So you'll see a mixture of different abilities across those boat classes, and that's why I'm going to keep on highlighting this Oxford crew aren't racing Oxford Brookes in the boat race. They're racing a Cambridge crew of very similar standard rowers.
Yeah, they are very similar standard rowers, and it's been a real learning process for this Oxford women's boat this year. I think we've got some real talent in there, some talent that's been nurtured at Oxford University. And they've grown, they've learned, they've had a lot of fixtures. I think actually we're just hearing from our director that we are going to have some videos about the sponsors of the boat race. Gemini, our main title sponsor, Graduate Hotels, Hydro, our official fitness partner, and T. Rowe Price, our official merchandise investment manager. So if those videos are up and ready, Chris, let's see them.
feel the river, you feel the beat. Let's grow together, we roll together. Better you, better me. Up and down.
Where are you feeling it? My butt? My glutes?
It's live, it's real, it's human. A beautiful move.
Get ready for that shift.
Wherever you been, the journey begins. So roll.
Come on, you got it.
Hello there, and if you just tuned in to this YouTube presentation from the boat race, welcome. I'm Martin Cross, and with me is Jess Eddy, and we have loved that first race. A lot of experience there for the Oxford women, and you can see our next race is the Oxford Women's Reserves. They're called Osiris, and they are racing the Oxford Brooks second crew. Well, it's kind of a second crew, we'll talk you through that, but later on in the day it is the Oxford Men's Reserves. They're called Isis, up against Leander's second boat, the Mitre Leander, and then the Oxford Blue Boat, the men, going at 1550 against the powerhouse that is Leander 1. You can see the weather, there's a slight headwind on the course that the crews will experience, but it's not doing much to ruffle the surface of the water. You can see for yourself, we actually just saw, Jess, I think it was a fixture with Blondie, the Cambridge Women's Reserves, up against Leander 2, and Leander 2 looked to have a pretty useful lead in the first 30 or 40 strokes.
Yeah, I think that gave us a little bit of insight there to this very strong women's Leander crews that have come to race against Cambridge today, which we're not going to cover, but we can see out of our window. Good tests all round for these blue boats this weekend.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and we are really looking forward to bringing you the Oxford race. The reason we're showing you Oxford, if you didn't know and you didn't watch our last presentation of the fixtures, which happened, I guess, about 4 weeks ago, was we concentrated on the light brews. We concentrated on Cambridge. And while the crews have had lots of different fixtures, it was just 2 that we're bringing to you live stream. So the light blues have had their day. This is the dark blue day. I was interested actually because one of the things around Tara Slade, which I kind of quite liked, who's the Oxford Women's Cox, who we will see a little bit more of in that second piece, I think. She lists her greatest achievement coming over to the dark side, because she was a Cambridge light blue and now she's gone over to the dark blues, so the dark side.
You don't see too much switching between the two. It's very, well, if you can't notice from the water, but there's quite a big rivalry between the two clubs, so yeah, you normally stick to one kind of blue, but now and again you see someone who's done both, and yeah, we can see it today on the water.
Looks like Leander going out for the men's reserve fixture. I guess that might be Leander 2 in the foreground there. They're just making their way downstream or against the stream. The stream's actually flowing in at the moment, and of course the boat race is rowed on the flood tide, where the tide comes in. So they're going up against the stream to the warm-up area, which is traditionally where the crews for the boat race warm up, above Putney Bridge and Putney Rail Bridge.
Yeah, it's a bit quieter up there on boat race day. No one really goes up there to watch them actually doing their warm, but it's quite an interesting part of the race. I always thought when I competed, it's a very quiet moment. You're away from the crowds, you're away from, you know, the actual race course, as it were. You get that moment, your last moments as a crew, to practice your strokes, to tell each other you're rowing incredibly well, you look great, tell each other to put their spoons in a bit quicker. It's a really intense but quiet time.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Just thinking about that race that we saw between the Oxford Women's Blue Boat and Oxford Brooks, They're going to be getting ready for a much shorter piece. They did that long piece to the crossing. I kind of thought, well, they always say the crossing, but actually, they'll race a shorter piece. They'll go somewhere along Chiswick, but they rode the longer piece. So I guess Andy Nelder wanted that in their legs. But what is he going to be saying to the women now in terms of this shorter piece? What's it going to be about? A 6-minute race from the crossing to the finish line?
Yeah, about that. You want to, it's about 3 minutes if you're going fast from Barnesbridge. Depends how fast you are. But yeah, I think stick to your plan. They've come out here to practice something. And yes, this is a one-on-one, a bit of a gladiator race, but we can see already, and I think if you'd ask people along the embankment this morning, we can see the pedigree of the Brooks crew. You know they're going to be fast. They're here to put them under pressure. And maybe actually today, Andy Nelder's thought, right, bring this crew in. What will my crew do when they're getting beaten? This is what it feels like. How do you react? Can you keep your heads? Can you keep delivering? And that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. Hugo Gulliver, the excellent coach of Oxford Brookes, I guess it's great for Oxford Brookes University to be seen to go up against Cambridge and seen to be go up against Oxford and beat them. But he's got, as you suggested in your commentary, Jess, he's got a real agenda in terms of winning the Ireland Challenge Cup at Henley for University 8s, and this fixture they've got at the San Diego Crew Classic, which would be a great trip. I don't know if you've ever made it. I missed going to that, but it's such a great contest.
Yeah, and it's exciting, isn't it, for the British crews to go over to the States? America's a huge melting pot of very good college crews and university crews. So if you're going to put yourselves up against the best of the best, the island went across the pond last year to Brown. It's in the States, and Brooks maybe going across there to plant a flag and lay their claim and start showing a few of their cards because they want to win that back and win Henley this year. So a lot of the time you're measuring yourself, and your clubs are getting assessed. Performance reviews are done on if you're winning Henley or not, and that is what they're trying to do. And I think right now they've certainly come out fighting, haven't they, in this head race season and these fixtures.
They have, and we're looking now at Fulham Football Club. There is a Premiership match going on there this afternoon. I don't know whether you'll be able to see pictures on BBC TV later on this afternoon on Match of the Day 2. Don't know whether that programme is going ahead with all the fuss that's happened, but if you know the score, text us in and we'll give you a shout. I'm Martin Cross. If you've just tuned in and you're wondering why aren't we watching any rowing action, the next rowing action that we're showing you is the Oxford Women's Reserve boat Osiris up against the Oxford Brookes second boat. Well, look, as if by magic, we have the crew lists from Oxford University Women's Boat Club, the crew from Osiris. So in the bow seat, it's Sophie Kamai, previously from Dartmouth University. I think she's American. Helen Nielsen-Scott. Kate Friesian in the the Canadian, previous university from the University of Toronto. Helen Nielsen-Scott, she's one of the twins that studies music at St Catherine's. Her sister Maria from Exeter College, she's a medic. And then going down the boat in the 5-seat Phoebe Mountain. She has raced in the lightweight boat race, so she's sitting in the middle of that, gone into the open weight. Lily Freischem, the German, her first rowing club was Edinburgh University Boat Club. Interesting choice of boat clubs, that. And in 7 seats, Barbara Blakova, who is from the Czech Republic, previously rowed at University of Massachusetts. The stroke, the American stroke, who is Juliet Russell, she was previously at University of Dartmouth. So these guys are coached by James Powell, and the cox is Anna Betteridge, and her first rowing club was Christchurch Boat Club. She's a historian. So the Brooks 8, well, this is a mixture of their second and third 8s. So the second 8 beat the Cambridge Blue Boat at the head by about 8 seconds, if memory serves, 7.5 seconds. So we have from bow Kate McNulty, Jemima Furness, Jasmine Bowers in the 3 seat, Alexandra Natal in the 4 seat, Emily Letton in the 5-6, Chelsea Armstrong, Anna Bloomer at 7, Beth Dutton in the stroke seat, and Cox by Emily Mears, who I think might be going toe-to-toe with Sophia Bernal, the Cox of Oxford Brookes 1 today, for a place in the Oxford Brookes boat at Henley. The umpire you can see is Caroline Litton. Aisling Hayes, the Irish international or trialist, was in the Brookes second boat for the head, but she's not in the crew today. I don't know whether she's back in Ireland or Brookes have been asked to kind of tone down their crew to race Osiris, Jess.
Well, the depth of this boat club's huge in the Oxford Brookes, that they can produce 2 women's eights finish in top 10 of the eights head. And if you don't know what we keep referring to, the women's eights head is raced last year, is the biggest sporting event for women in the world, not just rowing, and it's raced 320 crews descend on the tidal Thames and race over this 6.8 kilometre race, the other way around to the boat race. So the Thames is tidal, it comes in and it goes out, and right now, and actually the boat race, you'll see it going in one direction, which is the incoming tide or the flood tide, and the eights head and the men's eights head and the fours head, all the other big head races go on the outgoing tide, on the ebb tide. So you'd actually have to orientate yourself the other way around. These crews, the Brookes crews, raced the other way around last week, so from the University Boat Race finish stone all the way to the University Boat Race start stone.
And many thanks. If you are wondering about that score at Fulham Football Club, Jim Parrish has just texted in, and apparently Fulham are 0-3 down against Arsenal at home.
Oh, it's going to be some happy North Londoners. Arsenal are going to stay top of the Premiership.
Yes, and we can see some of the assembled crowd at London Rowing Club with their pints of beer, I guess. So I think you might have had enough of listening to Jess and myself just for the moment. We have got a short film that we can show you, and that's going to be a little break from us too. So over to you, Chris, and a film that you can watch ahead of the next race at 3 o'clock.
Wanting to do this, really wanting to do it, rather than thinking it would be a nice idea to row at a slightly different level and see how you get on, is a very big part of making it a success. It's extremely difficult. They work very hard. They're under a lot of academic pressure. They're tired a lot of the time. They're having to learn. You know, it's not as if you've got a group of people who come back for the Olympics who are now simply working out how to make their boat come together because they already know how to row. You're having to teach as well as train.
You think about winning and you think about racing every day. I think it's something I've thought about for a long time, but it's starting to become very real now, and I think the fixtures will be a really good way to sort of put that visualisation into action.
Yeah, there's obviously additional stresses. That's what this whole event is racing and performing under pressure. I think it's just bringing out the best performance in everyone.
All the way through the squad is really well bonded together. Everyone is really good friends with each other. There's a great dynamic. Everyone's very supportive of each other, trying to make things work as a crew. So if certain people can't make certain times because of labs, we're all willing to try and really pull together so you get as much water time in the right lineups as possible.
There's a lot to cover in these programs, isn't there? They're very short. You get 28 weeks from standing, and you have to cover a lot of bases. So we'll see where we are. There'll be things we're good at, there'll be things we're okay at, and things we've not covered, and we'll have to weigh up the need and then apply our energies where we're most going to be useful.
You can feel that it's racy. It is a constant reminder and necessity to be focused on that race.
Welcome back. It's nice to see those women from Oxford and their coach Andy Nelder talking about a short season.
You mentioned that it's 28 weeks, so normally in a rowing season we come back into our clubs in kind of September time, and you'd race through the winter, you'd do these big head races in the spring, and the big summer races happen in June, July. Not the case here. 28 weeks is a sprint. They start their universities, they're back on their courses in September. Their big race is in March. It's not long.
It is a short season, and it's interesting what the guys go on and do after this, whether they aim for something at Women's Henley or Henley Royal. you know, it's quite important. I think Andy Nelder, the Oxford women's coach, will want to take his crew through at least to develop these athletes. Some of them will be back next season.
Yeah, you see a lot of them actually go on to do representation of their countries. We've got quite international crews, Canadians, Austrians, Brits. A lot of them will finish here the boat race in 2 weeks' time. Might do a bit of studying, a bit of cramming for any exams, any last-minute essays that they put to the back of their mind while the boat race happens, and then a lot of them go back into their national programmes and join the under-23 teams and go off, and they might be racing each other in the summer internationally. So it's an interesting mix, an interesting path for these young rowers.
That to me looks either like ISIS paddling up past the start or the Oxford Blue Boat. Can't quite see. It's no, I can see it's a stroke side stroke. Can't see if that's Felix Drinkle in the stroke seat or not, but we will catch these guys racing later on this afternoon. The race we're focused on now is a 3 o'clock race, and if you are watching, we'll just say a shout out to our sponsors. You can see there Graduate Hotels, collection of 35 handcrafted hotels in university driven towns across the UK, the perfect sponsor for the boat race. Hydro, of course, our official fitness partner, brings the on-water outdoor experience of rowing directly into your home. Fantastic view on the screen. And of course, if you didn't know, rowing works 85% of the body's major muscle groups.
Have you done a hydro before?
I think I went on it once.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought I just loved my ergo. I love just having a tiny little screen and nothing much more, but once you get a screen and someone in front of you, you know, you can row down the Charles. It's pretty cool.
Just talking of ergs, what's your 2K at the moment, Jess?
At the moment, Crossy, I haven't done one for a while. I did the British Masters a couple of years ago, and I could still manage sub 7 minutes.
Sub 7's pretty
yeah.
cool. Yeah, well, let's just say that.
Bit off the boil for my best, though.
And let's just mention T. Rowe Price, our official investment manager partner, founded in 1937, based in Baltimore. Disciplined, risk-aware investment approach. And now we're turning our attention from the sponsors. I should mention Gemini, of course, our major boat race sponsor. But if you're watching, if you're one of the family or friends of either the Oxford Brooks women's second boat or the Oxford women's reserve boat Osiris, we're glad you've tuned into this presentation. Crews are due off in about 3 minutes. So you can see, actually, they think they've gone off. I said they're due off in 3 minutes, but Brooks Chose won this station, and they are on the far side. You can see them in red. I think the first 8 row in that Dayglow sort of yellow top we saw in the first race. So Oxford Brooks, it's a mixture of their second and third 8, and I don't know whether Oxford asked could they tone down their second 8, because their second 8 beat Cambridge in the head by about 7 seconds. So basically, I'd say Osiris were doing pretty well at this stage of the race.
Well, I think Brooks are quite far over. So the slowest water here is over near that wall you can see, that's Bishop's Park, and it's quite shallow, the river there. And I would say if I was the Oxford Cocks, I'd probably start pushing a little bit harder and get a bit closer to the Osiris crew. How many Mias can hear me? Start being a bit more aggressive and come back this way.
Well, Osiris look to be leading at the moment, which is an absolute turn-up. I have to say again, you know, but you know, 3 or 4 of this Oxford Brooks crew beat the Cambridge Blue Boat in the head, and Osiris, the second boat of Oxford Women's University Boat Club, now seem to be leading Brooks in the early stages of this race. And you know, James Powell, the Cox of Osiris, the South African, is going to be absolutely delighted with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a nice place to be, isn't it? You're sitting length up, maybe a bit unexpectedly. What's your game plan from here? What do you do? Stick to your race plan, probably?
Yeah, I think, you know, if you're Brooks, you think, well, we've all come through. But, you know, they look sharp, they look on it at the moment, Osiris, don't they? Going around that bend, flow forwards, looking nice and decent. They've got a nice rhythm going. Set up well in the stroke seat by Juliet Russell, the American, who's the closest rower to us. You can see the back of the Cox, Anna Bettridge, the Christchurch College historian, who's taking a little wide line round the outside of that Surrey bend, Jess.
I don't know, I'd always like to be, it's really deceiving. I'd always say get as close as you can to that Barn Elms navigational buoy, which you can't actually see, it's not even a shot here, but so further on the left hand side. It feels odd to go that wide, but it is the fastest water. So I actually think the Oxford crew here are doing a pretty good job against Brooks, but it looks very deceiving on camera, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think Brooks are about to go through the Oxford crew as we look at our kind of reverse angle camera. So the crews are rowing towards this camera. You can see Brooks on the left of your screen now in that kind of magenta. What is it? Cardinal red, not cardinal red or something. What's the official colour?
It's probably like Brooks Burgundy or something.
Brooks Burgundy. Yeah, let's go for that with the sort of white, blue and red blades, and Oxford, of course, on the right of your screen, the Oxford Women's Reserve boat. And Brooks have really turned that corner now to take an advantage on the bend. Look at that, she had the handbrake on the Brooks Cox there, Emily Mears.
Yeah, really took that bend. I think the crews are so far apart right now. I feel it's a bit odd. If I was a Cox, the fastest water is probably a little bit closer to where this blue boat here of Osiris are, and I'd probably want to start coming over there. But maybe this tactic's working well for them. You know, you don't want your crew to get washed down. You don't be too far behind. So maybe keeping your distance and giving yourself your own clean water is their tactic here.
So the crew in the foreground, Osiris, the blue boat's reserve, led early doors. They led for a couple of minutes. The advantage is, of course, to the crew on the far side at this early part of the race, the Middlesex station. This is the Oxford Brooks second crew, or a combination between their second and third crews. And if you are just tuning in and wonder what happened earlier, the Oxford Brooks first crew comfortably beat the Oxford Women's blue boat by about 5 or 6 lengths, I guess. Still got the overlap, Osiris, at the moment.
So yeah, we saw Osiris taking the lead there at the start down the line of boats, but this Brooks crew took, I thought, a slightly shallow course. It's paid off for them. Actually, they've had cleaner water and they've pushed through, and they're leading there by about 2/3 of a length.
Yeah, they're not moving away though, and you know this Middlesex bend on the far side of the course is going to unwind, and Osiris have got a bit. I don't know what the coxswain is saying, Anna Bettridge. She's being very cautious. She stayed out in the sort of Surrey stream. Perhaps, you know, maybe the Brooks boat lost a bit of stream by cutting that Middlesex corner so tight. I wonder what she's saying to her crew, because this is their water now, and I think their Cox, James Powell, has got to be absolutely loving the way that his crew have been competing with Oxford Brooks in this contest between the two second boats.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at here. These are the reserves of the boat race. If anything happens in the next 2 weeks or on the day, somebody from this boat will be called up and put into that blue boat. And it does happen. We've seen it before. People get injured, people get ill, people get tapped on the shoulder and said, tomorrow you're jumping in the biggest race of your life. So it does happen. So these crews have to be very sharp for that. They are the reserves, but they have their own battle. You know, they want to race their boat race, the reserves boat race. It's got a lot of pedigree, it's got a lot of history, and they'll still want to get a one-up on either university here.
So Emily Mears, the Brooks Cox, has now moved over. You can see she's sending her puddles down on the blue boat, on the blue reserve, on the Osiris boat, the reserves, and she's kind of inviting them. This is the danger, really, because if the blue boat put a surge on and they surge back, you're looking at our pictures obviously from the drone now, Oxford Brooks in the white coloured boat, the dark blue boat behind them. If the dark blues get a surge on around that Surrey bend, then Emily Mears, the Oxford Brooks second Cox, is going to have to move over and disadvantage her crew. But at the moment, it looks like Brooks is edging.
Yeah, that's more aggressive coxing. I like that. I think maybe a little steering warning there, can move slightly, but you can see these little white dots on the water. That's their puddles, that's their wash from their oars coming out of the water, and it's washy, it's wavy. If you're behind an 8 going at full pelt, that's not nice. We call it kind of dirty water, and it does disrupt you and your rhythm. So
we're looking at the back of Cape McNulty. Closest to us there, the Oxford Brooks bowwoman, second 8 bowwoman, Jemima Furness, Jasmine Bowers, Alexandra Natal, Emily Letton, Chelsea Armstrong, Anna Bloomer, Beth Dutton in the stroke seat. Cox by Emily Mears, as we've said, and they look to have taken a decisive advantage just over Clearwater in this race as we come up to that landmark of Hammersmith Bridge.
And really here, that was a great drone shot because the course, this first kind of 3 quarters is just one giant bend. You're basically going up towards Hammersmith and then you're going back away from Hammersmith, and so you get different water and different conditions wherever you are on this bend.
Oxford Brooks will shoot Hammersmith Bridge around about just over 2 lengths, I guess, up on Osiris, the Oxford Women's Reserve boat, and I'd say it's still a pretty decent road from Osiris. I think they're going to be loving the fact that they were in contact, and loving the fact that, what is it, just about, is that not quite 2 lengths of Clearwater? Let's give a name check to the Osiris crew. On the left of your picture, stroke Juliet Russell, Barbara Hakova from the Czech Republic, Lily Feisham, the German, in the 6th seat, Phoebe Mountain in 5, former lightweight oarswoman, the 2 twins, Maria and Helen, the Nielsen Scott twins, in 4 and 3, Kate Friesian in the 2 seat, the Canadian, Sophie Kamal in the bow seat, the American Cox Anna Betteridge. And they're hanging on in there. Water looks to be cutting up a little bit as we go around to Chiswick, Jess.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, you can see the flags here in Putney were blowing a little bit, and it's fine if that wind blows with the same direction of the tide. The problem comes when that wind is blowing against the tide, and it basically causes mini waves. If you think about it, on a sea, what it looks like when the tide comes in, that's what it happens, but the wind pushes against it, and you can see the top of your screen now. Oh, it doesn't look very nice around that corner across you, does it?
No, it doesn't. Nothing that boat race crews shouldn't be able to handle, I guess. And you know, it's kind of, well, that's what we train for. We row in rough water, and you could race any conditions on the day. So if you can handle rough water better, you know, I think when the Oxford men raced Oxford Brooks men a few weeks ago, I think Sean Bowden was saying to me, the Oxford coach, he didn't think his crew handled the rough water well, which is a thing for an Oxford coach to say, isn't it? And you know, and they've got to deal with that more effectively.
But that's why they're here. This is why you come and practice on the Thames, why they come and train here and do these fixtures, to put themselves in race conditions, in that race head, to put themselves under the pressure of doing this, and then throw the elements at it. It can be anything. It's March, it's pretty miserable, it's a bit windy, it's a bit rainy. That's the boat race.
Yeah, we're looking at the Oxford women on screen there, going round to Chiswick. I guess their coach James Powell will want them to do a long piece. Maybe it's going to be round to the crossing like that first piece was. Our camera's left that race now, and I think that is from the drone, looking at Fulham Football Club. Can't believe they're 3-0 down at home to Arsenal.
Doing pretty well Fulham this year as well, so that's a bit of a... Well, it's good for us. I'm a Newcastle fan, so you know, if anybody, Arsenal can stay at the top and Fulham can get beaten, that's fine by me.
Yeah, so we are now back with our cameras at London Rowing Club. We will bring you news of that race, but it did look pretty much like Brooks were moving away. I guess they had a 3 or moving out to a 4-length margin, and you know, if that's going to be 4 lengths at the finish, I think that'll be a win for the Osiris crew.
For the Brooks crew.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, what am I saying? A win for the Brooks crew, but I mean win inverted commas.
Oh wait, I get you. Yeah, it's good learning lesson, isn't it? If they'll come back. What will they say? They'll debrief. They'll say, look, we had them off the start. We were up. We stayed in contact. We gave them a race. They're the kind of things this Osiris crew will, exactly, you're right, see as a win. They want to kind of stay in touch with them and put them under pressure. And if that's what they can get out of this race, these crews can't come off the water and just say, well, that was terrible, and write it off. They've got to learn from it. Like anyone in sport, if you lose, you've got to figure out why, you've got to figure out what you can do better next time, and that's exactly what these fixtures are all about.
So this is a replay, if you're wondering. These crews may still just be racing, but they're beyond the reach of our cameras, just going up towards Barnes Bridge. But this was Osiris leading the Oxford Brooks second boat, as you can see there, by almost half a length off the start. Looking very good, fairly deliberate in terms of their rating. You know, they're What do you reckon they're going over at there? Something like 32 or something?
They look quite upright, that Oxford crew, compared to the Brooks crew at the top of the screen, a little bit more hunched over, but that the rhythm and the stroke that the Brooks crew do looks the same in this crew and their air crew. That uniformity, the depth they've got, their idea of what their technical model is obviously very robust and inbuilt across the squad.
It's fantastic, and the way they do competitive training against each other, you know, it's not, I suppose it is like every session's a competition almost, you know, and just the way we said, you know, the women didn't know if they were in the boat to race Oxford until this morning, and that was because they like to keep it that way. Just that margin, as we saw Emily Mears just send down those puddles down onto the dark blue boat and coming up to Hammersmith Bridge there, probably a length and a half of clear water between the Oxford Brooks second boat. There's our replays that we saw. Hope you enjoyed those pictures from our cameras.
Tide's filling up now, so if you tuned in an hour ago, we've got quite a lot more water in the river as it's incoming, there'll be certain points where it's faster and slower, depending on that, but generally we want as much water as possible. That's when we're going the fastest.
So just to let you know, our next race is going to be the Oxford Reserves ISIS at 15:35, I think. So you can see that the Oxford Reserves are up against the Leander second crew. And I guess we'll be bringing you coverage from our fixed cameras of that race as they go round past Hammersmith Bridge, past Chiswick-Ayot, and I'm not sure if Sean Bowden will want to go as far as the crossing. Normally I think the Oxford races go down to somewhere like Chiswick Steps and then they do a sort of second piece, but you know, it might be different this close to the boat race.
The wind direction is going to be slightly changing, so it might be a little bit choppier. If you look at your screen there, it's 1500 hours, 16 miles per hour coming there from the southwest, which means that the final bend that we come round after Hammersmith might get a little bit more wind against tide at that point if the tide and the wind are against each other. So be wary of that. A bit more water in the river, a bit higher tide, gets a bit choppier. Good test for both crews.
Yeah, definitely, and I think Sean Bowden will relish that after sort of feeling that his guys didn't really handle the water that well against the Oxford Brooks first crew. Oxford coming off second best in those fixtures. I guess that wasn't a surprise against the Brooks men, who will be racing in the Tideway head of the river, the men's version of the women's head, which is happening, well, it's this coming weekend, isn't it, Jess?
Yeah, in a week's time. Big week, Schools Head of the river. It's a big week for you. It's a busy month really in Putney on the Thames, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure this Leander crew will be going out and racing there, and as they come past our window right now, we can see them warming up, just doing arms only, tapping it along. They'll probably come to your screen in a minute. Looking very slick.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Leander. Of course, their crew, we did know about their crew quite a long way in advance, and the men's crew's coach Matt Beachy has done a fantastic job, I think, with his crew. They've raced Cambridge already, I think. We'll talk about that when the race goes on, but they've bettered them. Is that right? Have I got that right? Yeah.
Yeah, they raced them a few weeks ago and they beat them pretty convincingly in the first piece. They beat Cambridge University and then brought that down to a little bit of a tighter race in the second one, 1/4 of a length. But we're saying this a lot of this racing and the distances are done by somebody watching from the umpire's launch behind the race. We haven't got actually in these fixtures somebody exactly on the finish line, so it's someone's measured judgment. I actually jumped into one of the fixtures the other week and I thought we won by miles, and they said they called it a length.
I was going to ask you about that. You were rowing in the there's a couple of things I was going to ask you, which is amazing because you jumped in 2 years running now, haven't you? And they love you at Cambridge because Paddy Ryan just sort of phones you up and says, Jess, I need you.
Well, it's quite handy because I live about one street away from the boathouses here in Putney, so I think I'm an easy target. But yeah, I love a bit of rowing. So if anyone calls me up and asks me to come, I'm normally there. To be honest, I'm a bit of a rowing geek.
Now, do you find it? I was going to ask you this as well. Do you find it more hard to keep neutral, bearing in mind Cambridge have asked you to sub in? Like, do you have a fondness for the light blues, Jess?
Oh, I like to. I keep watching and keep their progress and keep an eye on them. But I think I am a real lover of rowing in general, and I'm a big fan of watching women's rowing and seeing the depth in that. And that's what I really get excited about. I do commentating across the board at different regattas, and a good race is a good race, and I'll get behind it and get into it regardless. So yeah, I love to keep an eye on the Cambridge crew. I'd like to have an honorary blue, please, if anyone from the university is listening, to help me in my career. But it's been good fun jumping in there and learn a lot from sitting in the middle of a boat.
I find when I go, because I was up at Cambridge doing interviews with the crew, and they're lovely, the guys who was, that Goldie Boathouse there in the camp. And you leave and you think, oh, they're great, they're really nice. And then you go the next week and you go and do Oxford interviews and you think, oh, these guys are fantastic, they're really nice. So I think it kind of depends who I've been talking to last. But it is really, nice to see. You get to talk to the athletes in the crews, you get to know them, and you kind of wish that they could all win, really.
And look, that's what's special about our sport, I think. It's a hard sport. You have to spend a lot of time doing it. You have to master it. It takes years to row at the highest level. You have to train a lot. You have to be physically and technically capable to do that. And I think there's a joint understanding across all rowers, really, isn't there? You've probably had it across you going around the world. You could walk up to a rowing club and start a conversation with people at that club. And I think we're very lucky to be in our sport that we are in, and have that community and have that ethos amongst rowers, not just here in the boat races, but different boat clubs up and down the country. We're so lucky to be involved in it.
So we have a race going off at the moment. Is that in front of us? I think that is the Cambridge women against the Leander women, and Leander do have a lead. We're not showing you the pictures of this race, but we're interested in it. Looking out the window, Leander have a lead of a canvas against the Cambridge women's blue boat, which is okay for Cambridge women's blue boat, I think.
Yeah, that Leander crew that we're not showing you, but we'll tell you about, is they pretty much the crew that came second at Women's 8 of the River a week ago, compared to the Cambridge crew that they're racing against that came ninth. So there is a difference in calibre between the two of them, but a good race and a good trial for them 2 weeks out from the boat race, and that's what we're here for, the actual blue boat. These fixture series are really incredible moments for the crews to test themselves against the best crews in the country, and if you're joining us, that's what's happening right now. We've had a day of seeing the Oxford University Women's Boat Club versus Oxford Brooks, and we're going to be seeing Oxford Boat Club versus Leander very shortly. So a good test, and actually people enjoy coming and racing them. I don't think people say no when the boat racers say, hey, do you want to come down to the Thames and race against Oxford or Cambridge? I think they get a very big take-up, and people come from around the world to do it. The Dutch national team came a few weeks ago to race as well.
Yeah, they did, and they loved it, actually. They found the water a little bit popply and difficult to handle on the first piece, but I think they got used to it on the second piece and beat Cambridge. So Cambridge beat them on the first piece, then they beat Cambridge. So both crews loved it, and the Dutch had that sort of break from that sort of mind-numbing training they do. Was it something 32k or 34k in singles? Very low intensity. Physiologists have got their fingers all over it. If your heart beats up by 1 or 2 beats, they'll point to it and say, look, we were watching you, that's too hard there. It's the Dutch training model, and of course incredibly successful at last year's World Championships with some fantastic results from the Dutch team. So it's interesting to see, whether any other countries will follow that training model.
Kind of interesting, if we just talk about international rowing for a second, that you have all these different ways, many ways to skin a cat. We'd say so many different ways of doing it, so many different techniques. Yet the races can come down to, point something of a second between the crews. So I think if you do a model, you've all got to get behind it and do it. The troubles come probably when people have their own ideas and start pulling away from the system. Whereas if you're going to do a technique, buy into it, do it, because you're going to be in a boat and have to row with other people. It's the joy of our sport, unless you're a single sculler, and there's a few of those crazy people out there. But if you're in a crew boat, you need to buy into that technique, you need to buy into that physiological training program and do it.
Do indeed. You can see, if you're tuning in and wondering why we're not following the light blue races, it's not because we're biased against the light blues, it's the fact that we showed the light blue races about 3-4 weeks ago, and we thought it'd be nice to give the dark blues a chance, so we're focusing on the dark blue races this afternoon with our launch cameras. Thank you to Gemini, who've made the sponsorship of the boat race and this transmission possible, and all our partners who are working with the boat race. Graduate Hotels, the official partner of the boat race, a collection of 35 handcrafted hotels in university-driven towns. Hydro, the official fitness partner, rowing machine that brings the on-water outdoor experience of rowing directly into your home with that monitor. You heard us talk about that earlier. Lots of locations filmed from the Thames to the River Charles in Boston to Lake Lucerne in Switzerland. And T. Rowe Price, our official investment manager partner. And I think we should say something about Boat Race Ready. I feel that I'm getting Boat Race Ready, Jess.
I'm feeling more and more like the boat race is coming. It's 2 weeks away, Sunday the 26th of March. We're going to be seeing 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the 77th women's boat race, at 4:15 the reserve boat race, at 4:30 the men's reserve, and at 5 p.m. on Sunday the 26th of March, the 168th men's boat race. And they're running a campaign this year to try and get everyone involved, the whole rowing community out there, whether you're an old blue, whether you went to University of Oxford or Cambridge or didn't go anywhere at all, but we want to get behind this sport, and we want to share what everyone's doing. So start from now, running up to the day, launching a hashtag boat race ready. What are you doing to get ready? Are you bringing your old blazer out? Are you figuring out the tube map to come down to one of our fan parks at Bishop Park or at Hammersmith? You're figuring out what you're going to be eating on the day. We want to see it. Hashtag boat race ready, and we're going to be keeping an eye on them.
What are you doing on the boat race, Jess?
I'll probably be down here somewhere trying to, it's funny coming to watch it in person. It's pretty amazing to watch it. I think we all love doing a sporting event together, don't we? And after the past few years we've had, so I might be getting myself just across the river to Bishop's Park to join in the fan zone fun. Have a little bit of fizz. And
are you going to visit Mahikis?
I think I'm past that point, to be honest, Martin. Those days are over.
Oh dear.
I think I'll enjoy it up from the side of it, and then come across the London Rowing Club maybe for a little drink with some friends.
That'd be nice.
What are you doing, Martin?
I am doing, if the BBC Sport's still in existence by then, I am doing some work for BBC Sport. At, I guess, the halfway point, a bit of punditry. Last year I was working with Helen Glover and Catherine Granger, who actually I see from some of the crew bios is the idol of a lot of crews, a lot of the female crews, and Helen Glover's someone's hero too. So they kind of asked me what I think of the races and what were the key points. So I love my little bit of punditry.
Nice, good to get your opinion. Martin's been involved in our sport for a very long time, Olympic champion. He's got a lot to say about what's happening out on that water, so I know that you're very popular in your world rowing and your Henley work, so it's great to have you on board here at the boat races.
Yes, it's good to be here, and well, the 2 crews, let's take you through the 2 crews. In the Oxford men's reserve crew, up against Leander 2. So Jan Ole Ernst, the bowman of the Oxford crew. Jan Ole Ernst won the lightweight boat race in 2019 and 2020, so he's there. In 2-seat, Harry Ahmad from the Australian, from University of Melbourne. In the 3-seat, Saxon Stacey from St John's College, reading English. 4, Anthony Kenny, another Australian, learnt her at Sydney Rowing Club and has studied at Harvard University. Nick Elkington in the 5 seat. These are the powerhouses in the middle of the boat. He's been selected for 4 ISIS crews. Wow, that's a pretty good thing to add to your palmares. Pete Denton in the 6th seat, won the 2022 reserve boat race. Great experience to have in the 6th seat. Andrew Wakefield, the Kiwi from Avon Rowing Club down there in the South Island. And in the stroke seat, the American Colson Andrews. It's an American name, isn't it, Jess? Colson. Rowing for Oxford University Boat Club. Louis Corrigan just missed out. 2 great coxes Sean Bowdenfeld he had, but Louis Corrigan lost out to Anno Hanlon, the Australian who is coxing the blue boat. He won the 2022 reserve boat race. Do you want to do the Leander 2 crew, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking here from the bow seat. Rory Harris, GB Junior sculler, pretty powerful guy there up in the bows too. Bruce Turnell, who's actually won gold at the under-23s in the quad. Getting down there to the 3-seat, Jack Keating. 4, Joseph Adams, who's also a junior under-23 and under-23 sculler. 5, Brian Ellery, another GB Junior and under-23 winner. It's pretty littered with good crew members here. 6, Oliver Costley. That's 7th seat there, the rhythm seat, Matt Fielding from Clydesdale. Stroke by Tristan Grange and cox by Sonia Gladstone.
Yeah, Sonia Gladstone, the cox of the Leander 2 crew. And it's an interesting lineup. I was looking at the background and stroke Tristram Grange from the Henley College. I wonder, actually, I'm going to do a bit of a shout out here, because on my thinking, did you have the crews the other way around there, Jess?
I did have the crews the other way around, Mark.
So basically,
adjusting my little sheet here.
I'm thinking, so I don't think Tristram Grange is stroking the Leander 2 boat. I think he is in the bow.
Yeah,
because his rowing is from Henley College, and so we're not going on our graphics here. We are going on the thing. So I think Jan Ole Ernst is actually not in bow, but he's the stroke of the ISIS boat. So I think the order is. So I'm going to take an executive decision. I hope I'm not wrong, and this might all blow up in my face, but. Stroke of ISIS, Jan Ole Ernst. In 7, Harry Ahmad. 6, Saxon Stacey. 5, Anthony Kenny. 4, Nick Elkington. 3, Pete Denton. 2, Andrew Wakefield. Bow, Colson Andrews, cox as is. And then stroke, Rory Harris, which would make sense to put your best oarsman in the stroke seat, wouldn't it? 7, Bruce Turnell, the under-23 world champion. Jack Keating from Ireland from the Junior Worlds in 2018 in 6. Joe Adamson competed in the under-23 Worlds last year. Bryn Ellery, 2 World Silvers, Prince of Wales winner in 2022. Oliver Costley, won at Fawley, one of the Prince of Wales in the 3-seat. Matt Fielding in the 2-seat, under-23 Europeans 2021. And then the Henley College rower, Tristram Grange, who's come up to Leander Club. I think he's in the bow seat. And I think that's what we'll call. And if you think we've got that wrong, text us in or speak to us on Twitter, and we will gladly correct. But I think that's an executive decision from Jess or myself, and I don't think those graphics hit it quite right.
Well, we'll keep an eye out. Let's see who's in the stroke seat. But that Leander crew, I mean, blimey, I could have gone on and on. They're littered with Henley rowers, Henley winners, national team vests, aren't they? That's Leander B. So you're talking about a huge depth again in these crews coming up against the blue boats and the reserves here, ISIS.
Yeah, I kind of think, well, Osiris, the reserve blue boat, led Oxford Brooks, their 2nd and 3rd 8 basically, a mixture of the two. Can I see ISIS, the Oxford men's boat, leading Leander at this early stage of the race? I'm not sure. We will bring you news of the stations when we have it, but we haven't had that at the moment. The stations that both crews have chosen, but we will let you know when we see. We haven't been getting a shot from the launch of the start of the race. It's just seeing the crews come into view. The University Stone is just to the right of our picture. It's out of shot. What is it, about 200-300 metres away, Jess?
Yep, it's up there. If you are ever walking alongside the Thames here, or you manage to spot it, it's a little stump of a stone. It just has 3 letters on it: UBR, University Boat Race.
Is that it?
Yeah, and there's one here at the start, and there's another little stump down near Chiswick Bridge.
I know what I was going to say. They have put a new landmark on the boat race course.
Oh, what is it?
Well, it's in St Paul's School. It's a post. I think Chris Harris was telling me about this, and it's a wooden post. I don't know which colours, if it'll be painted St Paul's colours, black and white, or boat race colours, but it is the halfway point of the boat race, and it's now been measured, and it's somewhere in St Paul's School grounds, and you can see it from the course. I'm not sure if the cameras today will pick it up, but that's a new landmark.
I love it. Traditionally, we use the real accurate marker of a blue set of doors.
Yeah.
That are just downstream doors of Chiswick 8. The blue doors are famously halfway. The course is 6.8 kilometres, so you're looking at 4.4k. I hope they've measured that, but yeah, we always go for the blue doors as the halfway. I was actually out in a boat with Gwyn Batten the other day, and Miriam Batten, and both of them had never seen where the blue doors were before. Interestingly, both 2 Thames rows. So yeah, it's a famous. You get told where the halfway mark is. You don't necessarily look out the boat there, or maybe you've got no energy to look out the boat at halfway. We got blue doors at Molesey. I row at Molesey down upstream on the Thames, and there's the blue doors there, and there was a famous piece from the blue doors to the finish, and I think it was Alan Pascoe, I might have got that wrong, that basically bought the house or was having the doors repainted, and he kind of said, you know, what colour should I repaint them, and the Molesey guy said, you've got to make them blue because that's the colour we know. So the blue doors are blue, but mostly he's put some flagpoles in now, a little bit upstream of the blue doors, so the pieces are all from his flagpoles that currently I think have a Union Jack and a Ukrainian flag on, if memory serves. It's funny, these little weird landmarks that we know around all of our weird and wonderful rivers and canals. We'd love to hear what your strange landmarks are. If you want to tweet us and tell us, because we love these interesting facts. I think there's probably some odd ones upon the Tyne where I used to row. There used to be a pink wall there that you'd row to, and that was a 16-kilometre outing. So yeah, there's some odd ones.
Yeah. I just wonder if that's a launch I can see just coming through Putney Bridge. We're not getting pictures from our launches just at the moment. I guess the reserve race is going to be covered from our fixed cameras, because our cameras on the launches are going to be covering the Blue Boats race, which is due off at 15:50. 15:35 is the reserve boat Isis racing Leander 2. Of course, Matt Beachy, the coach of Leander 2, coach of Leander men's program, run a very successful program. Matt Beachy, in terms of what the club has produced in terms of Henley wins and so forth at that level, and a lot of the Leander rowers want to get into the national squad, like Felix Drinker, of course, who was one of the rowers Matt Beachy was working with, now of course gone over to Sean Bowden late in the day.
Yeah, it really is a stepping stone, and I think it's actually become a stepping stone for the women's squad at the moment, as well as the men's, to get their foot in the door with the national team. But we're just here now.
It's changed, and look at that. Thank you so much, our producer. Yeah, we've got Jan Ola Ernst back, as he should be, in the stroke seat, the lightweight in the stroke seat. Harry Ahmed, Saxon Stacey, the big man in sixth, backed up by Anthony Kenny. Middle of the boat, Nick Elkington and Pete Denton. And then going down to Andrew Wakefield and Colson Andrews. And there we do have a shot from our launch. Leander just a little bit down, just getting ready. You can see the force of the stream there, Jess.
Yeah, as I was saying, it's coming in now, so it's going a little bit faster. There is a set of rules here on the tidal Thames. It's the rule of the 12th, so there are different times at different times of the incoming tide, but it's really flooding in now. You can see how fast they're moving.
So the umpire is Claire Harvey. I'd say Leander have a little bit of a lead at that point, and the hand of the Isis Cox, Louis Corrigan, is up, and of Sonia Gladstone, the Leander Cox, is up. He's put his hand down now, but they're looking across. the Dark Blues are down, but they're going to start them anyway. Very deliberate on that first stroke, no rush, no bother, and now they're going through the wind-up. So what rating will Oxford hit? They look to be mid-40s.
You'd be over 40s. You'd be getting as many strokes as possible right now, and they are aggressive start by both crews here.
Yeah, I'd say Oxford were more aggressive than Leander. Of course, Oxford, nearer their race, just a couple of weeks away. They're going to be more race sharp than Leander too, who will be looking to go off at about 36, 37 in the men's head next week when they race. So I think ISIS, the reserve boat, are perhaps leading by... oh no, they're not. No, I think it's Leander's. They come past us by half a canvas.
Yeah, it's really on the surge at this point here, isn't it? And that's where really that first minute you're laying down the groundwork and you want to get your bows ahead. It's much better than rowing to be staring back at the crew you're beating, and this is where you're making that happen. Strong start by both crews.
So just to be clear, the Dark Blues are Oxford. It's their second crew, ISIS. They are going toe-to-toe with the men from Leander Club, racing in white with the Cerise pink blades. And it's very little to choose as they go away from our commentary position in London Rowing Club, down the Fulham Wall towards Barn Elms and the Fulham Football Club. And Leander will have the advantage of the first bend. You can see they have a nice advantage from our launch. That's a great shot. Leander look really long out there, don't they?
Yeah, and that's the test. If a crew jumps you and beats you off the start, how do you then really maintain your rhythm and stick to what you're doing? And Leander have done just that here. Really good job to stay on form and trust in your training program. And they've just nipped out to about quarter of a length, I'd say, half a length.
I like Rory Harris round the back turn. He's got a real sort of nice flow, hands going down and away, sets it up really nicely. There's no rush, there's no hurry. And the lad who got a World Cup medal, I think, back in 2021 in the double sculls, is doing a great job stroking the Leander crew. Yeah, we'll just have a look at him. There you see is that back end of his stroke there. So there's the Barn Elms boathouse. That's where I learnt to row, Jess, a long time ago. I'm not even going to say when.
Oh, nice point in the river. They should make that into a new boat race.
Yeah.
Post. Martin Cross learnt to row here.
So on the left of your picture, the men from Leander in white, they are probably about 2/3, 3/4 of a length up on the blue boat. It's the advantage. You can see the crews are turning round towards the left of the screen, and that means that Leander are on the inside of a bend. And here we've got some fun as the coxes come close together.
Oh, this is what you want to see. They're side by side. The umpire's going to want to hope that the crews stay apart. They don't want to call for either crew to move over, but generally we see a bit of clashing because people want to hold their own water, don't they?
Well, it is. There's still the overlap, so the Leander crew can't sort of go too much. So Claire Harvey, the umpire, is maybe going to be warning the Leander cox, Sonia Gladstone, who is, I think we can say she's steering a bit aggressively there.
Yeah, but I like it. You want to be aggressive. You want to put them under pressure.
Absolutely. Fulham Football Ground in the backdrop there as the crews come down the last bit of this first bend. Might have been clever for ISIS to choose that inside of the bend to get a lead, but they wanted maybe the Surrey Station. Not quite sure who won the toss in this race, but you can see clear water as we go past that red navigation buoy, and Louis Corrigan has had to steer around the outside of that bend, and he will be hoping that his men can find something extra. The stroke man from the lightweight boat race, Jan Ola Ernst, in the Oxford boat, he's the rower closest to us in the Dark Blues, needs to find something together with his 7-man Harry Ahmed. You can see he's quite upright style, the 7-man of Oxford, isn't it?
Yeah, an Oxford bow side stroked, which is a bit unusual. You don't always see that. You normally stroke rig a boat like you see here on the pink of the Leander crew. So you must be bringing something to that boat. That's the dynamics of the boat. The coach has decided works better being rigged this other way around.
Well, Luca Ferraro, I see that Rob Baker's switched the Cambridge crew to a bow side stroke as well, which is kind of think, oh, that's interesting, because I thought Ollie Parrish was a big stroke, but he's in the semi-set now.
Oxford, you'll be on the
so
side.
I think we are seeing from our drone shot the crew from Oxford desperately. They have moved back maybe a little bit on Leander, would you say, Jess?
I mean, they're staying there. Fair play to them. They're staying in touch, and they've got good line. You want to see that red navigational buoy there? That's the fastest bit of water, almost just to where they are. But they're going to be rowing in dirty water. Look at those puddles coming down from Leander. If you're in that blue boat behind there, the ISIS boat, you'll feel a bounce from this crew, and it won't be easy to row in.
I think Sonia Gladstone's moved a little bit to her right, the Cox of Leander, and just to sort of edge out, Louis Corrigan, the dark blue Cox, has got to be hoping that his men can find something extra around this Surrey bend and take the advantage and push back on Leander. At the moment, I think they're going to be pleased with what they've done. Okay, Leander have moved out, but they do have all those strong rowers, those GB rowers, international rowers. And Sonia Gladstone has moved right across there. Look at that move, Jess.
Well, she's got clear water, so you absolutely would. The minute you get clear water, you can move inside. Some of it, you don't want to be too rude, but I think right now you want to be as aggressive as possible, and you want to put them in an uncomfortable position. Regardless of what you are, this is a private fixture. There's no medals handed out for winning. There's no names going up on any prize boards, but we're competitive, aren't we? We want to beat the crew next to us, and Leander want to come here and beat this Oxford crew. It's bragging rights for the rest of the season.
So this is our camera from Hammersmith Bridge. You can see the boat following. I guess that's Brendan Glidden, the South African coach of ISIS, who is looking at his charges, the Oxford Reserve boat, and Sonia Gladstone with that aggressive line of steering, and the Surrey bend just coming into play now, and this is where it's really important that ISIS take advantage of their bend. See, they've got about 1 metre or 2 metres of clear water, Leander, and ISIS desperate to close that gap.
That won't feel comfortable for Leander. Okay, they're up a length, but I tell you what, if you're in that crew that's winning, they're not sitting back now, kicking back, relaxing. That is real pressure from this ISIS crew, and fair play to them for keeping in the race.
Yeah, they're in the red zone now, ISIS. They've got to go deeper into that red zone. The Cox, Louis Corrigan, is going to be asking more of them. He's going to be asking Jan Ola Ernst in the stroke seat for more effort, for more leadership as that Surrey bend unwinds round to the right. We are going to be losing our pictures of this race shortly, as the water, you can see down there in Chiswick, it cuts up a bit, but that's because we will take our cameras back to the start for the blue boat race between Leander 1 and Oxford University, and here's where we are. So yeah, we won't know, I guess, if ISIS did move back on Leander, but I would say that Brendan Glidden's got to be pretty pleased with that ISIS performance. Here's a replay. Look there. Is that Leander up at the start?
Yeah, unless it's just a dodgy angle.
It could be a dodgy angle, but yeah, Louis Corrigan's got his hand down. So
interesting. If you saw there, you going against a very fast incoming tide, so you don't actually square up. So those spoons are kept flat in the water, and the minute you hear the umpire say attention, you square your spoon and put it in the water. Otherwise, the force is too much against it. And that was a great shot there that we saw happening in the Leander crew. So they've obviously got the tricks of the trade, this Leander crew, and been taught how to do a boat race start.
So there's the two crews. Leander perhaps slightly lower in the rating compared to ISIS, who have been practicing starts probably more than Leander have, standing starts. Leander, of course, racing in the Men's Head next week, which is a running start. So ISIS will be pleased with what they've done early on, but Leander had that advantage, which they capitalised on around that Middlesex bend, and their Cox, Sonia Gladstone. You see her there in the boat on the left of the picture. These are replay shots we're looking at. This is our drone
I'll be asking you
covering
to turn in 1 minute.
Oxford
1
Reserves,
minute to
ISIS racing Leander 2.
And these crews are so close to each other. It's really intense. You can hear the other people in the crew. You can hear the Cox calling. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. You want to kind of stay in your crew, in your bubble, but it's a really personal, intense thing, one-on-one racing.
Well, here we have the boats from Oxford and Leander won the 2 boats. So in the bow seat we have James Forward from Pembroke, studying PPE, philosophy, politics and economics. He rowed in the boat race in 2021, which Oxford lost. Great rower. Alex Bebb in the 2 seat. I did have him down at 4 actually, but Alex Bebb in the 2 seat. St Peter's College, studying engineering science. His greatest idols, Tim Foster, rowed 2 in the 2021 Oxford Blue boat. So another Oxford Blue, Alex Bebb. Freddie Orpin in the 3 seat, Alfred Orpin, to give him his first name, qualified for the Prince of Wales at Henley. His rival, his greatest idols, Tom Ransley, the British Rio gold medalist in the 8.
Cambridge rower though, so that's controversial.
No, it is controversial. James Doran, I've rowed with him actually, the former Dulwich College rower. Picked up his rowing at Edinburgh University. He's come down to Cambridge, to Oxford. He's now in the 5 seat. JP, Jean-Philippe Dufour in the 6 seat. He is a real live wire, that Swiss Canadian. He loves to race, he loves to win. His greatest achievement, he said, well, it's nothing because I haven't won the boat race yet. And he's desperate to win the boat race this time. Tas von Müller, the president, in the 7 seat.
And then get together,
he is anchoring that boat again. Another ISIS reserve rower. And I think in the stroke seat, we've got, well, he says he's got 3 boat race silver medals. Felix Drinkel. Will this be a 4th gold medal this time in 2 weeks? Felix Drinkel, the former Leander rower in the stroke seat. Anna O'Hanlon, the Cox from Australia. Her dad is great as a national team Cox, and they love the fact she's very calm and collected. Got a really good boat feel, according to Sean Bowden. Do you want to do Leander 1, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely. Up in the bow seat, it's Tom Ballinger from Clare's Court School. Won the ladies' plate last year. Miles Devereux, under 23 sculler. Brother Seb is also a good GB sculler. In the 3 seat, James Vogel, another under 23 vest. Nick Farrell, the South African, in 4. Rudolf Kerfeld, Australian under 23 rower. Further down the boat there in 6, Matthias Huller, Austrian under 23 rower from University of Washington. Dan Graham, under 23 GB vest in the 7 seat, with Josh Browsman Jones stroking last year's ISIS boat. And of course, we mentioned already Jack Totham, the Cox from last year's blue boat, taking him down the course. A very well represented crew there, Martin.
Yeah. Bozeman Jones was in that Oxford 2021 crew. A lot of these guys are blues that, you know, couldn't quite manage to beat Cambridge when the race was held at Ely. It was interesting talking to Matt Beachy. I kind of said, you know, what's Rudy Querfeld doing in your 8, the Austrian International? And he said, well, you know, we've kind of got Matthias Holler, who's an Austrian, rowed at Washington, an IRA champion with Washington. That's the top university's rowing race. And he kind of said he's linked up with him, so put Rudy Querfeld in. I'm not sure whether he's just over here for the row or the head of the river and is going back to the Austrian team. Of course, dreadfully sad news from the Austrian team this year with that terrible bike accident where Christoph Siegfriedsberger lost his life while out on a training ride in a training camp in Varese. But 2 Austrians in that Leander boat, and it is going to be absolutely crucial that Oxford hang on to Leander and they don't allow Leander to get a lead. You know, this could be really good for Oxford if they can just keep hold of Leander around this first part of the course. So my guess is Sean Bowden would have told them to blast off like anything.
100%. You want to get ahead here. I think it's a very good crew. And here they go.
That's Sarah Winklis, the Olympic bronze medalist, and Henley Stewards umpiring this race. Very measured start from both crews in that first 3 or 4 strokes. Leander do look sharp on the right of your picture, but so do Oxford as they go through the gears now, Jess.
It looked bouncy at the start there, didn't it, Martin? And both crews would have a difficult time with that bounce on the river, but aggressive, punchy start.
It is, and the crews are coming past our commentary position now. I can see them, and it looks like they're pretty close from our launch shot trailing, but I can tell you that Oxford do have a 1 metre lead over the men from Leander Club. First blood to Oxford, great start. They've been practicing starts, and it's going to be fascinating to see what they can do. Leander beat Cambridge, of course, twice, and you know, if Oxford can get one over on Leander, that is going to be so much for their morale for the boat race. Oxford leading by 1 to 2 metres. What have Leander got now in this sort of second minute of the race? Both crews move apart, and this is aggressive coxing. Well, look at Anna O'Hanlon, she's holding a line. Will she obey Sarah Winkless and the instructions that she's been given there? And what will Jack Totem do, the Oxford Cox? Will he feel pity for his dark blues? Will he feel, you know, I can't be too nasty for them? Or will he be aggressive and want Leander to have the best water?
No, he'll be aggressive. He wants to win this race. He'll be clashing if he can. They'll have briefed before this, and everybody talks about it. I jumped in a crew the other week, and if you clash, hold on for dear life. And that's what they're going to be told. But Oxford, wow, what a start here.
Well, he talked about it, and what a great bit of stroking. Felix Drinkel hoped to be in the national squad. He's the oarsman on the left of your picture. Tas von Muller's anchored it really well. The big German learnt to row on the Baldnese AS, and you can see the crews coming together, Jess.
There's the clashing I said. Who's going to hold on?
And this is where it's going to need to be cool, calm and collected from Anna O'Hanlon, the Australian. That's why she was chosen in this crew. She's likely to get the same from the Cambridge Cox Jasper Parish. Anna O'Hanlon is turning towards Leander, and at the moment she's trying to get the best of that water. Certainly I'm impressed with the way the Australian Cox is steering from Oxford there. Look at that.
More clashing here.
Oh my goodness. This is so exciting, the most exciting race of the day. Leander coming back into it. Now they have a slight lead, and Anna O'Hanlon is trying to just track them, and now Jack Totem is steering into Oxford, and Sarah Winkless is saying both crews move apart again.
What a headache for Sarah, who's umpiring this race. You want your crews to be kept apart, but the crews want the fastest water, and that's what they're doing here. They're trying to get their bows ahead. They're trying to put each other under pressure. Who's going to crack?
Felix Drinkel, cool, calm and collected, even though the lungs are screaming at this part of the race. Hunched over her rudder strings, it is Anna O'Hanlon, the Cox from Somerville College, studying clinical embryology, and she has steered aggressively. You can still hear the umpire warning them to keep both crews apart.
It's interesting to talk about physiology at this point. You've just done a sprint off the start, you're 3 minutes in. This really hurts. The lactate in your legs is absolutely at its highest. Your lungs are burning, and you're clashing against another crew. It's hard, isn't it, Martin?
It is, and I think that is Jack Totem. He's not giving any quarter to his former club, to Oxford. Jack Totem steered the Dark Blues to victory last year, and he is really being aggressive against Anna O'Hanlon, and she's being cool and calm. No one's lost their blade yet. Oh, there's some hitting. Oh, there's the, I think that was the 3-man, or was it the 5-man in Oxford just losing their blade? Sarah Winkless saying both crews move apart. Anna O'Hanlon not giving any quarter. I think she's lost a little bit there, but she's staying close on those puddles to Leander. Jack Totem, well, look, isn't he aggressive, Jess?
Well, both of them being aggressive, and it's great from our seat. It's horrible if you're the umpire, and it's probably not very nice if you're in the bow or the 3-seat of the Oxford crew, because you're going to hit blades. We just saw there, when you clip a blade, you miss the water, you miss a stroke, and if you have 8 people and somebody misses that power, you lose a seat or 2.
I think Oxford have definitely moved on since they raced Brooks. I mean, this is a fantastic performance in the first part of the race from Oxford. Let's see what Leander do as we move on, but to have the kind of overlap, this is exactly what Short Bowder wants. Bit of clashing, bit of aggressive steering, you know, put Anna O'Hanlon up against Jack Totem. You know, what more could you want from a boat race fixture? And Oxford are even moving back on Leander as we speak. My goodness, are they going to row themselves into contention to be the boat race favourites, Jess?
Well, this is where you've got to wonder, what does their winter training look like? What have they learnt from their fixtures? How calm are they? And they look quite relaxed.
They do. Is that the difference with Felix Drinkel? We've seen their closest to us, the rower, rowed for Leander. He could be in that Leander crew, but at the moment Drinkel is seeming to make a real difference know it's slightly controversial, certainly, that he's been put in at a late point from Cambridge row. You think that, but from an Oxford perspective, Drinkle is delivering now, and that Oxford boat is edging back on Leander, and they have the inside of the Surrey bend, Jess.
Yeah, this is now going to go in the favour of the Oxford Blue boat. Can they keep on it? Can they keep delivering? Because they're down, and it's quite easy when you're down to put your head down. But if they've got this confidence and they've got a burning desire and this competitiveness and in their crew, which they seem to have, they could really put Leander under a bit more pressure here.
So I wonder if Cambridge are watching this thinking, crikey, I didn't know the dark blues were that quick, because everything we've said about the dark blues and the light blue men's crews is that we can't really split the two of them. But this is one race where you think actually the dark blues have shown something which we haven't seen before. They've gone up against Britain's best club, Leander Club, who beat Cambridge, and they are moving back through them on the inside of the bend. Who's not to say that the dark blues will actually edge Leander and actually win this race, which will be an incredible feat. 2 weeks to go before the boat race.
It'll be huge, and you know, Oxford know this and Cambridge know this, but Cambridge in one of our previous fixtures raced against Leander and lost to them both times. If Oxford could get one up here on Leander, that is a massive advantage going into the actual boat race in 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, if it was the Cambridge Blue Boat racing today, maybe they might have moved on. Undoubtedly, Sean Bowden's done an incredible job. He's been chief coach of Oxford since '97. He's one of the most successful boat race coaches ever, and he's won in 12 of the last 18 races, Sean Bowden. What an incredible stat, what an incredible coach. And the dark blues are moving through. Drinkle is doing the job in the stroke set. I like what Tas von Müller is doing in 7. He's really keeping cool as we see the blades clashing, and Oxford are moving through Leander. I never believed I'd say that.
What good rowing there. I think holding onto your heads as you're clashing and putting your bows ahead, really exceptional stuff.
Sailing boats in the way, as you generally do get on a Sunday afternoon. Let's hope we don't have a collision with one of those sailing boats and they get out the way. Oxford moving nicely, nice back turn from Drinkle there, but let's not forget the middle of the boat there. James Doran really anchoring it nicely in the 5 seat. Wonder if it was him who lost his blade. 6 seat for the Oxford boat, JP Dufour, the French Canadian, the Swiss Canadian, absolutely desperate to win this year's boat race, and he is a real live wire. I interviewed him about a week ago, loved talking to him. He talked about the boat race with an extraordinary zest, which is unusual even for boat race athletes, and you could see he's anchoring that boat in the 6 seat, and they are pulling away from Leander on the inside of that bend, Jess.
So here's where the water's ripping up, and we talked previous to this fixture starting that Sean Bowden wasn't really happy with his men in their last fixture because they didn't deal with the rough water. Well, here is another opportunity to deal with it.
Yeah, and will Oxford deal with it better than Leander? So the Oxford crew are on the left of your picture, the dark blues, you know them, don't you? Leander with the pink blades. They are on the right of your picture. Leander are the form crew. They have beaten Cambridge, the light blues, in a previous fixture. They are now struggling to hold on to the dark blues, who must feel great. This must feel great. They've got to be. Look at James Doran, the 5-man there. He's really gritting his teeth. Absolute agony on his face, but that is going to turn to joy if they manage to stay ahead at the end of this fixture.
And this is horrendous water. Look at the white caps on that river there. It is really hard to row, and you can see it's tough to get their blades even through the water up to take the stroke. So both crews are dealing with very tough conditions.
Jack Totem cocks the Oxford boat, that magical Oxford boat, one of the best ever to a boat race win last year. He knows this course, he knows these conditions, but he's, and the 2-man of the Leander boat, Miles Devereux, just lost his blade there in the rough water. Maybe that's given a little bit of an advantage to Oxford, who have improved their rough water handling at the urging of their coach. Leander now desperate to hang on. This race has got, what, another 30 seconds to go, maybe a minute at tops, Jess.
They're really laying down a marker here, and I'm, to be honest, I'm quite surprised by how they moved through that Leander crew there, one of the very best crews in the country. So aggressive steering by both coxers. Sarah Winkler says the umpire is not happy.
She's moved right across Anna O'Hanlon. What's she doing? She said, what do you do? Did she say, what are you doing to Oxford? Can't believe what Anna O'Hanlon's. I've never seen such aggressivity. That is amazing. Watch out, Jasper Parrish from Cambridge. Here is your equal, perhaps on the boat race course. Look at that rough water as they come round towards Chiswick Steps. Maybe about another 30 seconds. That was the most aggressive move I've ever seen, I think. Oh, and they finished there. Oh my God, that race had everything. Objection from Jack Totham. He is looking to disqualify Oxford and saying they didn't have enough room. And Sarah Winkliss will go over. You can't disqualify Oxford because basically they won that race.
But the Cox there didn't really need to move across.
No, I think it was over aggressive. But, you know, she's basically.
The umpire Sarah there is about to go and tell them off or make a decision about that race.
Is she going to give them a telling off? And Jack Totham saying, well, we had an opportunity to go back through and she moved right through. There's no love lost there between, you know, the Leander Cox and his former club Oxford. It was only last year he was with him.
No, but we see the stroke man there. He's actually got his Bozeman Jones has got his Oxford Zephyr on, so he's showing a bit of loyalty to his old club.
Oh, that's a good spot, Jess. Well done. Replay of that magic race. I wonder what the verdict is going to be. Do you think she's going to disqualify Oxford? I hope she's not, because I mean, you know, all's fair in love and war, and the boat race is about war.
We'll hear what she's got to say, but we had it all there. Ups and downs and clashes and water conditions and objections. So if you want to see some high quality sport, it's happening right here. Unbelievable.
Okay, what I saw.
So have Oxford rode their way into being favourites for this year's boat race?
You caused a foul and I was warning. If you had won the race, you would have been disqualified. Oxford, you went ahead earlier than I wanted and you did not respond, but I'm going to let the results stand.
She's going to let the results stand, but if it had been a race, they'd have been disqualified. Hand slaps there from James Doran in the 5 seat to the 4-man. Tom Sharrock.
On our list it was Alex Bebb, but yeah,
Alex
they switched it round, haven't they?
So they switched it.
So good lessons there learned, to be honest, and it's great umpiring there from Sarah to explain the decision and why she's made it. She says there to Jack Totham in the Leander crew, you didn't respond earlier on in the race, and if you'd gone on to win, I would have disqualified you. So I understand that you're objecting, but there was I called numerous times for you to move and you didn't respond. I called numerous times to Oxford and they didn't respond. So she's kind of saying you're both in the wrong, it stands.
Yeah, I think, is it Tony Reynolds umpiring the men's boat race this year? So Sarah Winkliss, one of the boat race umpires, has come out this afternoon, and they're always done so well. Was that the bowman of the Oxford crew? Just hanging on to his blade, James Forward. He could have lost it there and caused a big crab. And here's where the Oxford crew moved through, Jess.
Yeah, you got to remember Leander were up for most of that race. It was this bend here, I spoke about earlier, this big Hammersmith bend. Oxford obviously had the bit between their teeth and they wanted to turn the tables. And you asked me if this changes who's favourite. I think it puts Oxford in a very strong position.
Does, doesn't it? Yeah. I think if you're Cambridge watching this, you're kind of going, remind ourselves we're just focused on our crew and what we can do. But at the back of your mind, you're thinking, bloody hell, what's happened there?
But we also don't know what Cambridge have done in 2 weeks, and they, you know,
that's true.
could have come on leaps and bounds, and you can make changes, you can make differences all the way running up to it. And look at that water. That was pretty much almost unrowable. Yeah,
Matt Beachy there, Leander Cox, was saying, you know, it was going to be pretty stiff as it blew up. You know, as the tides got higher, the streams got faster, the winds maybe just blown up a little bit as we get down to the Chiswick Reach there, and you can see Oxford moving across the station, Jack Totham objecting, and Sarah Winklish has let the race stand. She's from Cambridge, Sarah Winklish, so, you know, no favouritism there. That move to Anna O'Hanlon, I thought Jasper Parrish was aggressive. Boy, you haven't seen anything.
It'd be good for us to grab her, you know, as they come off the water and ask her what was going on. She might tell us to keep walking, but interesting. You do that because you're practicing, and maybe you've been told once you get clear water you can move over. It was very tight, and almost no need to do that. But I see what they're doing, and I love a bit of aggression from a cox, to be honest. So my cox, Zoe Toledo, was a boat race cox, and the lessons she learnt in the boat race were great lessons for coxing on the international Olympic stage.
So I'm not quite sure if we are going to be able to give you the pictures of that second last piece in terms of the crews are going to race, I think, from the end of Chiswick Steps to the finish. I've got that right, or maybe it's just one piece. We will, I think, shortly be leaving you. Yeah, piece start to Chiswick Steps, pending conditions. I'm not sure there's going to be a second piece, actually, for these two crews.
I mean, it was getting to the edge of unrowable there. We'd run the boat race in these conditions because it's going to happen, but they've got to take into consideration safety, the health and safety actually of the athletes. Is it benefiting them? What you're going to get from it? And a couple of weeks from the boat race, you don't want to put anyone under too much strain. I think this is probably the last big pieces they'll be doing. We'll find out more if it's going to go ahead. But that first big piece there was a huge scalp to Oxford University men over Leander A.
Yeah, it was, and I'm not sure when we've quite had as much excitement in terms of the boat race. Jess Eddy and myself, Martin Cross, doing commentary. I think we're hearing via WhatsApp from our lovely director Chris, that there are no more races for us to show you. We have shown you the replay of that incredibly exciting and controversial race, and that has set us up brilliantly for the boat race. So I think it's goodbye's time now. So really enjoyed having your company this afternoon. Hope you enjoyed that race. And from you, Jess?
Yeah, it's been absolutely great. I mean, what a privilege to sit here and commentate on these races, and we are so looking forward to Sunday the 26th of March. Get your calendars set, get boat race ready. 4 p.m. the 77th women's boat race, and 5 p.m. the 168th men's race.
So from Jess and me, it's goodbye for now. See you in 2 weeks' time.
Bye.
We're always looking for the ideal rower when we're trying to pick our crews. Whether we ever find the absolute perfect example, it's hard to say. They need a good endurance system. It is a tough endurance sport. We're looking at a high level of aerobic power. Rowing in an 8 means that you have to have this synchronicity of technique, but also a synchronicity of thinking. Rowers tend to be really good team players. They know how to work in that very close environment where everybody is connected to each other. Everything that I do in the boat will affect the way somebody else in the boat can row. So those people who can get that, they know how to contribute to a team, they know how to put the energy in to get the best out of other people. Those people are really worth their weight.
It's two boats side by side, completely head to head for 16, 17, 18 minutes. There's no pacing, the tactics completely brutal. The race could be neck and neck for 16 minutes, it could be over in 2. Really showcases the real pinnacle of academic excellence alongside that sort of athletic achievement. And I don't know any other institutions in the world which I think handle it as well as Oxford and Cambridge do.
Not only are these people incredible athletes, but they're also achieving great things off the water. It means they're all incredibly interesting people, and I've got a lot to learn from every single one of them.
I think we've had a really, really good team culture. I think there's been no big egos. Everyone's just kind of focused on, okay, how can we make this team as fast as we possibly can?
It's tough being in constant selection, but equally just drives us all to be the best we possibly can. Never a bad thing.
It becomes quite real very quickly, and everyone's really bought into that now. It's getting quite excited and ready to go.
the river is in a gentle humour today. This may be close as well.
The hours, the weeks, the months of preparation.
It's frantic stuff. A release of all that waiting and all that adrenaline now. All the waiting almost over. And the next 17 minutes or so will decide how the story ends.